Good afternoon, everybody. It is about 3:15 on Wednesday, February 18th. Haven't checked in today because I really wanted today's video to kind of focus on like the steps I'm taking to plan the upcoming segment of history that I'm going to be teaching my students. So I didn't vlog at all. What you missed so far is I had a meeting and then another meeting and then I'm about to have another meeting. I had a meeting at 7:30 with the rest of the 8th grade team at my school so we could talk about end of the year activities and promotion and what that's gonna look like in this current environment. Then I had my Hawk Academy and my regular classes, and today we just worked on them, or they worked independently mostly on putting together their written response for the close read writing prompt we've been working on together as a class for the past couple of days. And then I had a leadership meeting right after my last class that was about 20 minutes long. And I was just giving them some reminders of what their expectations are as members of the leadership class, how they're being graded, what commitments they made, and then some things that we need to work on going forward. Leadership this year, in all honesty, has been like a bit of a struggle. So I am planning my next round of instruction for history. We just finished up with the Bill of Rights, and so now we're going to be moving on to the Louisiana Purchase. And so I thought this would be the perfect opportunity, since I hadn't already had this plan, to kind of share with you the steps and the tips that I would offer in terms of history instruction. If you're looking to make your instruction more varied in perspectives, more true and authentic, more inclusive, and less watered down. So last summer, a lot of things happened in this world. And because of those things, it really made me stop and reflect on what I needed to do as a teacher when it came to my instruction in history. And honestly, at that time, I realized I need to refer to myself as a history teacher, because I've always just said, oh, I teach language arts and social studies. And to me, social studies is not quite the same thing as history, and vice versa. And I truly believe that when you only refer to yourself as a social studies teacher, it kind of gives you the out to kind of water down your history instruction and how you teach it, and not really get like too gritty or too deep with it. So this past year, I don't know if you've noticed, but I specifically say I'm a history and social studies teacher, really to kind of keep myself in check. So as I'm planning any round of instruction, these are generally the steps that I take. Hopefully it helps you and makes sense, and if not, you can ask me some questions and I'll try and clarify. The first thing that I did is I realized that just blindly following, and this is what I've stopped doing, just blindly following your textbook does not serve anyone well. So this is the textbook I'm supposed to be teaching from. It's very heavy, it's very dense. There's a total of 17 chapters in it, and it is densely packed with all kinds of information in great detail in many cases. When schools closed in March of last year, I was on chapter 4, and chapter 4 was talking about like the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and that was as far as I had gotten by March. And school's out in May, so clearly at that pace I was not going to get through the end of the book by the end of the school year. Not that getting to the end of the book is the end all be all or the marker of a successful teacher, but you know, it's a goal. You want to get through as much content as possible. Currently, it's February 18th, and I, according to what I'm teaching right now, getting ready to teach, I would be approximately in chapter 6. And I say approximately, and I'll explain why I say approximately in a second. And that is with me only being able to teach history maybe for an hour or two, if I'm lucky, a week. Under normal circumstances, I had a history period and a language arts period with both classes. So I was able to teach history every day and still only got to chapter 4. Now, when I say approximately chapter 6 in the book, that is because we as a class have not touched this book all year. I really just scrapped this book altogether. It's dated. It's too much. It's too detailed in some cases. But I do every once in a blue moon reference it just to see like the progression of information and what they want to share. But there's so much extra information in here that I just don't feel like it's necessary to devote a day or two on, that it's rare that I look at it. So for example, right now we're going to talk about the Louisiana Purchase. but we had to get from the Constitution and George Washington to Thomas Jefferson and the Louisiana Purchase. And if I were to go through the book, it's going to give me all this information about John Adams and his presidency and all these things that were going on. And that's valuable, but it doesn't contribute to the end goal that I have, or the broader goal that I have in terms of my history instruction. So that's why we watched a quick video on John Adams. We talked about some of his successes, some of his challenges. Then we watched a video on Thomas Jefferson, so they knew that after John Adams came Thomas Jefferson. And then I paused there and said, this is who is president currently. When we start talking about the Louisiana Purchase, this is who the president is. So instead of using my textbook, I have been relying very heavily on this. So in the state of California, we have something called the History and Social Science Frameworks. It will tell you, based on the grade level you're teaching, like what they would hope a teacher would get through during the course of that academic year for a student. So you have a cover page, and it tells you these are 3 broad questions when you think about the year of instruction in 8th grade U.S. history. What did freedom mean to the nation's founders? How did it change over time? How and why did the United States expand? And who is considered an American? And as you read through this, it breaks it down even further into subsections. And I use the subsections that is broken down into to kind of guide me in my instruction. So the subsection that I'm working on, and I keep looking at the clock because I have a meeting that's going to start in a few minutes. I'm currently here. This subsection is titled Envisioning a New America. The foundational questions for this subsection are: how much power should the federal government have, and what should the government do? How did the government change during the early republic? Was the Louisiana Purchase constitutional? So that's where we're at. And what was life like in the early republic? So these are the things that I use to kind of dictate, what do I want to teach? What do I want to go in great detail about? And what are things I can just kind of skim through? So right now we're going to talk about the Louisiana Purchase, and in the book there's a section where they talk about Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton's relationship. That's interesting, but it doesn't really contribute to what I'm trying to teach based on these foundational questions. The other thing that I really like about using this, and I know not every state has this, is it will give you suggestions and references to resources that you can use. So the resource I'm going to use to teach Louisiana Purchase came directly from the suggestion here. So I'm going to be using a lesson from the, I always say it wrong, the Stanford History Education Group. And the premise of this lesson is the following. It says, in this lesson, a timeline of the purchase along with letters by Federalist leaders helps students decide whether practical concerns or political agendas motivated the opposition. So we're going to look at documents. We're going to source those documents. We're going to read the words of people living during that time. And we're going to be focusing on the Louisiana Purchase and what it did for the growth of America. But we're also going to look at it and ask, but was it constitutional? We just learned about the Constitution and what it outlined, and then this happens, and was that a constitutional thing? And the people that opposed it, why were they really opposing it? Was it for practical reasons, or was it really politically motivated? So this lesson is much more valuable and intriguing to me than just reading about the Louisiana Purchase in the book, because this book is pretty dry. Anytime I, have a topic that I'm going to read, if I want to add supplemental material, the next place I'm going to go is YouTube and see if there's any resources that can kind of help us out. So when I typed in, or when I was reading through this, after we talk about the Louisiana Purchase, we're going to talk about expansion, and we're going to talk about Lewis and Clark as well, because that was a part of the whole expansion of the United States. But I want them to know about Lewis and Clark, but I don't want to spend a whole lot of time. So I'll always do something like go to YouTube, and I will type in Lewis and Clark, and I will see what videos come up. And when I saw that there was one for Brain Pop, I decided to look at that because I know it's going to be school friendly. I'm not going to have to really worry about anything being inappropriate or anything like that. And so we're going to watch the video from Brain Pop. But that was just found by me looking that up in YouTube. So I always go to YouTube to see if there's any sort of video to supplement what I want them to know, or a video that can take care of some information that I want them to have, but I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. And so that's the next thing that I do. And so I think doing that and just being really confident in myself and my ability to kind of look at this, think to yourself, what's the big goal? The big goal for me is for them to understand historical moments and how it affected multiple people in America at the time, some of the reasoning behind some of the things that we've done as a country, some of the consequences, both positive and negative, and those are the things that I focus on. I don't necessarily need them to know every single war and every single date and every single person and every single interesting little fact and every single word of the Constitution. I need them to have conceptual understandings of those things. And I think just focusing on that and trusting in my ability to read information, synthesize it, pull resources together has allowed me to progress at a much more efficient pace than what I was doing before. And I think it has made my history instruction more engaging for students. This book is boring. Giving them worksheets just to fill in based on these lessons is boring, but they've had a lot more fun reading actual documents, debating about it, pulling in things like vocabulary, which is another one of my favorite resources, pulling in videos from YouTube that are supplementing it. That has made it more interesting for me to teach and inherently more interesting for them to interact with. And then with American history, making sure to tie it into their lives right now. So I'm still in the middle of planning. I've got a few days planned. And then here I just know that the next few things I want to talk about is maybe the war with Mexico, but I feel like I don't know enough about that yet. So I need to look that up and do some research, but definitely Manifest Destiny, because that's a huge part of American history and some of the decisions that we've made. So if I had to say resources that you must use, frameworks if you have them, things like vocabulary, the Stanford History Education Group, and more than anything, my message is like, this is not the end all be all. This is not the Bible. You don't have to use it to be a good history teacher, but you can use it as a guide, but it's not, you don't have to be tied to it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I'm gonna stop talking because I have a meeting that I need to go to. After the meeting, I will definitely wrap the vlog up, and if there's anything that I feel like I forgot to mention, I will mention it then. But I hope all that made sense. I feel like I was talking really fast because of this meeting. But if you have any questions, let me know. But I gotta go right now because I have a meeting. I'll be right back. I just finished my meeting. It is about 4:30. And I'm just here to close out the vlog, and I came downstairs specifically so that you guys had a change of scenery because I feel like you only see me upstairs. But it was a meeting with the other panelists that are gonna be a part of a panel that I'm going to be on next Friday for a human rights and equity conference put on by CTA. It is free if you are a member of CTA. I will be sure to leave the link in the description box if you would like to come to the session I will be a part of. I will be there, Megan will be there, and 2 other educators from the California area will be there. And there are other sessions available as well that all look very great. But I'm getting ready to eat lunch now because I haven't eaten anything, and I'm going to go to Starbucks because one of you, let me go back upstairs because I want to say a proper thank you. It's double star day at Starbucks, and I wasn't gonna go because I feel like I've been doing the most with my Starbucks trip. And then I woke up this morning and one of you kind souls sent me a gift card to Starbucks that's gonna cover my little drink for today. So I want to say a special thank you. Give me a second. Battery, please don't run out. To Sarah. I'm not gonna say her last name, but Sarah, thank you so much for giving me an excuse to go to Starbucks today. I really appreciate you. You didn't have to do that, so I wanna say thank you. Also, if you're in Texas, I wanna say my thoughts and prayers are with you guys. I know that this is tough. I hope that everything starts to turn around for the better for you guys as soon as possible. My camera died, so I'm not sure if everything that I just said was caught, but I wanted to make sure that those of you that are in Texas, that you know that you're in my thoughts and prayers. I am praying for you guys. I hope everything turns around for the better and that you are staying safe and as warm as possible. And for the rest of you, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are well. And if you are not well, as always, please be well, and I will be sure to see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day.